Hello again, everyone, and welcome to One on One. I'm Martin Falls, very pleased to have the City Marshal with us today, Herbert Fitch. And of course, I remember Herbert Fitch way back in the day when he started with the Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office. He's going to be our guest on One on One. We'll be right back. Don't go away. One on One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer. And welcome back to this episode of One on One. As promised, my guest today is a city marshal right here in Houma, Herbert Fitch. Herbert, good to have you here. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
I've been knowing you for a long time. I was trying to recollect my thoughts this morning and try to remember the first time I met you. I know it was the early days of HTV, and it was either Mardi Gras or News Stories or The Beat.
Yes, sir.
Which of course was a big show back in those days. But for those who know you well, or they think they know you well, let's go back to your early days. Where were you born, and what's the earliest days you can remember?
I was born here in Houma. I grew up in Mechanicville. I was one of those trouble kids on the street, didn't want to listen to mom. My daddy died, I was about 3 years old. Right. So my mom's the one that raised us, myself and two sisters. Yeah. So it was pretty hard coming up, because I didn't have things like other kids had. My mom was crippled, had no education, but she did whatever it took to keep a roof over our head and food on the table. Yeah. I was getting in a lot of trouble, kept getting suspended from school, but she would never let me stay home. She always made me work. Yeah. So during the times that I was off of school, I would go and work for a guy by the name of Sam Medice, who used to have an oyster company here in Dulodge. So the times I was off, I'd spend time on the boat working oysters, until I started hanging around with a couple guys from Houma Police. I got involved in a Houma Police Explorer group, which was run by Greg Hood. And Greg and I became real good friends, and he kind of like took me under his wing and started teaching me about police work, and he was real good to me, So that's when I decided I had to make a choice. I either had to straighten up, or I was going to be somewhere I didn't want to be.
Right. But your mom
group.
Laid that foundation.
She was my rock.
Was she strict?
Very strict.
Yeah.
Very strict. She, old school mom.
Yeah.
We didn't talk disrespect to her like I see a lot that goes on today.
Right.
We never talked to our mom like that. Mm-hmm. Mom, grandmother, that was a no-no.
Right. Fitch is really a bayou name.
Yes,
but
sir.
Mechanicville, that's moving pretty far up. But did your mama move to Mechanicville? Where was she born?
Grand Caillou.
Grand Caillou.
Yes, sir. The majority of my family is from Grand Caillou.
Okay.
And I believe it was at a young age that they moved up toward Houma, and at Mechanicville, where she moved, and that's where I grew up at.
Yeah, because Fitch is a large family.
Yes, sir.
There's a whole lot of branches on the tree.
Yes, sir.
In the Fitch name, for sure. So at an early age, your mama sort of kept you in check, which later on, and we'll get to running for city marshal and winning, she must have kept you on a straight and narrow because you earned your life out pretty good.
She was pretty strict with me, and like I said, growing up, I gave her a lot of trouble, being a teenage boy out there, wanted to hang the streets with my buddies and run here, run there. And like I said, I didn't have what a lot of other kids had. I had to wear hand-me-down clothes coming up, hand-me-down shoes. I would work on the oyster boats during the summertime to make money to buy my school supplies for the next year, or give her a little bit of money, to help her out. But she was pretty hard on me in teaching me how to work, and if I wanted something, how to work for it. So, like I said, she was my rock, though, and she did whatever she had to do to make a dollar to keep the bills paid. During the wintertime, she would clean ducts. She cleaned ducts for Joe Wade's the St. Martin crew, a lot of big oil field companies that would take customers duck hunting. Well, everybody bought their ducks to Mama Fitch.
Yeah.
And that's how she would make money during the winter. During the other times, during the summer, she would clean seafood. For Ray's Seafood Restaurant that used to be on Grand Kai Road, Gino's.
Right.
She would clean all their seafood for them, and that's how she would make her money. She got to become real popular with the duck cleaning.
Yeah. And duck cleaning is a meticulous kind of thing, isn't it?
Well, on times if I wanted money, she said, pluck ducks and I'll pay you. So I learned how to do that with her.
Yeah.
But if we wanted anything, she would make us work for it. You couldn't just walk up there and get it.
Right.
And
so she taught you work ethic.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was a very hard worker.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. There's two Herbert Fitches that I know personality-wise, because you can be pretty strict when you have to. We saw that at South Terrebonne. As a matter of fact, we were at the football game the other night, and the students, you must have like a legendary spirit still over there, because I noticed when they sort of get around you, they perk up and they behave.
Well, I got real close with some kids over there. A lot of them would come to the office and they just wanted to talk. So the door was always open to sit and talk. Whatever I could do for them, I would. A lot of times they would come, hey, can you talk to mom or dad for me? Sure, not a problem. And the parents worked real good with me there, and they trusted me with their kids. So once they put their trust in me more, and I couldn't let them down,
Right, yeah. And then there was the not so strict Herbert Fitch. I remember, for some reason, you always rode behind my float in Mardi Gras. And
yes,
I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, sir.
And we always have fun in the Mardi Gras float, but I was the float captain. And we had this particular individual on our float that kept launching hamburgers.
Right.
And you got up several times and said, Martin, tell your guy, if he throws one more hamburger off the float, because they were going by the units,
Right.
then I'm going to have to pull him off the float. So I delivered the message, and he was a fun-loving guy. Turned out to be pretty good in the community, but back in those days, he was hard to control. So no sooner than I tell him, he hollers my name. He's on the top, I'm on the bottom. He says, Martin. He's undoing a hamburger, and he launches it. And I watched it fly in the air, and it made a little curve, and it stuck on your windshield.
Right.
So I remember you getting out the car, coming to the floor. I said, there he is, take him away.
Right, I remember that.
But you gave him several chances.
Martin, I used to have a real bad attitude at one time. I'd get mad so easy, and I had to learn to control that.
Yeah.
When Sheriff Larpenter hired me, I hadn't worked in 2 years, and I went to him looking for a job. And he told me he would look at everything. He would take all my, I was a volunteer fireman also, and that he would look at all my training I had from there. And I went home that afternoon. I sat at the table with my mom, and I told her what I wanted to do. That I wanted to become a cop. That I really gave it a lot of thought. And she told me, she says, "You sure this is what you want to do?" And I said, "Yeah, Mom. I think this is where I want to go." She said, that taking this job, you have to be fair, you have to be honest. I said, I understand. She says, if I did something wrong, you had to come arrest me, you have to do your job. I said, oh, Mom. She said, nope, that's not. You have to do your job. So I made her that promise that I would try to do my very best at that. That was the first time I had sat with my mom and actually had a heart-to-heart talk. Mm-hmm. I was 20-something years old, and I started telling her things I was doing while I was growing up, and she cried. and that hurt bad. See your mom cry.
Mm-hmm.
But she stood behind me, and that afternoon while we sitting there talking, the sheriff called me, and he told me, he said, Herb, come here, I need to talk to you. So I went in, I sat down with him, we talked, he said, I'm gonna start you off in the jail. So it was April 1989 I started from in the jail upstairs. And you know, people get angry with the sheriff. They say things about him. But this guy really took care of me. He gave me many chances, you know, and coming up through those stages, I had to learn. And there's a lot of times he would bring me in and get on my time, and then 5 minutes later, he wanted to know where the fish biting. That's the conversation we would have. Mm-hmm. But he always took care of me, you know, made sure I had a job. I was always, I didn't like putting money in the bank. I like keeping my money home. So when we went to direct deposit, I still hadn't opened a checking account. And he called me in his office. He says, you need to open a checking account or you don't get a check. I said, but I don't like a checking account. I don't like dealing with it. Well, you're not gonna get a check unless you open a checking account. So I opened my checking account and started saving money, putting money on the side, working a lot of hours. Mm-hmm. In the jail, I worked the 2 to 10 shift, which was the best shift, and we was only working 8 hours then. And I'd work a lot of details when I get off to make that extra money to get things that I wanted. My wife was pregnant at the time that he hired me, you know, so I had to do something. Mm-hmm. And the way I was going wasn't good, but he gave me my first chance.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. You got this blue collar mentality, and it's not fixed. A lot of public officials have white collar mentalities, and some mix the white collar and the blue collar. You've always been a blue collar guy.
Well, I love law enforcement. I really do. I'm different from a lot of others. I'll sit and listen if you got to talk. If I don't have an answer for you, you will never hear the words, I can't help you. Because if I can't, there's somebody else that can, and I'm going to put you in that direction. Mm-hmm. I never tell nobody I can't do nothing for them. I will bend over backwards to try and help, no matter which way I have to go.
You know, and you've always had that spirit. You know, I guess, you know, being without a dad at an early age, did that sort of give you a mission that when you got to be older, especially when you took an authoritative role being a police officer and now city marshal, to use those talents maybe to help somebody else in the same situation?
Like I say, growing up without a dad was hard. Mm-hmm. Greg Hood was one of my first true friends, and took me in his wing and was showing me things and bringing me places. Then I became real good friends with a guy in high school, which was an awesome guy. You couldn't split us apart. And his dad, Ambrose Thibodeau, I started calling him Pop at a young age, because everything Ambrose did with his family, I was included. They went on vacation, I went on vacation. That was the first time I've ever went anywhere outside of the home or out of state or anything. And I got really close to him. I felt like he was the father figure. I would give Mom trouble, she would call Ambrose. She said, I'm calling Pop on you. He'd call me and say, get to my house. Yes, sir. I'd go to his house and he would get on my time, just like I was his son. And we stayed like that. My first job in the oil field was working for him at Pride Oil Well Service. And he started me off in the yard, and I worked my way to working on the rigs and all. And it just wasn't for me, you know. I did commercial fishing, I worked the oil field, but I didn't find that was for me. Commercial fishing, I loved it because I loved being on the water, but I didn't like going offshore. Mm-hmm. So sitting there and trying to put pieces together on what I wanted to do with my life, commercial fisherman doesn't have a retirement. They don't have insurance. So if you get hurt and you can't go to work, you don't make money. So getting with Greg Hood and the Homo Police Explorers, when I was old enough, able to go get a job, that's when I went to see Sheriff Larpenter, and he hired me on, and ever since then, that's where I've been.
So you worked for Sheriff Larpenter how many years?
Till he retired.
Okay.
I did 32 years in the sheriff's
So
office.
you had retirement years, but you wasn't going home and sit on the lazy boy. You
I
figured
couldn't.
you still had something left to give.
I can't sit at home. You know, it's just like at work now, Martin. I can't sit behind that desk all day long.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what the people pay me to do, you know. So I go out, I assist my guys with evictions. If one of them's on vacation, I'll go out and serve papers myself. Take care of the courtrooms with my guys. I have an awesome crew.
Mm-hmm.
They really take care of me. When I first started, they were like, boss, sit over there, we got this. I'm like, no, guys, y'all gotta let me help out. Let me do something. I can't just
Well, that's
sit,
in your blood.
you know.
You're not going to get rid of that. I used to watch you when we do the beat, and every police officer had their different way of handling things. But I remember you, if there was a big crowd and they were sort of getting in the way of what was going on, might have been after a fight or whatever, you drive up there and tell them, get in your house. They'd turn around and go to the house.
Well,
That's the way you approach it, isn't it?
It was funny. I was leaving a football game one night, and there was a big fight on East Street. City police were calling for backup. So I drove up, and when I get off the bike, one of the ladies said, oh, y'all gonna stop now, Uncle Fitch is here. So we started laughing, and one of the officers said, what did she call you? I said, she called me Uncle Fitch.
Yeah.
You know, and I went and talked to them, and, you know, they, like you said, they went off, you know. But it was the way you approached them and the way you talked to them.
Right. That was your area.
Right.
Everybody knew you. Of course, it branched out after that because your territory grew, but I guess it helped that you really knew that general area.
You know, and I guess another thing that pushed me harder is during high school, a lot of guys that were big athletes during when I was going to school, I saw a lot of those guys get in trouble as I was growing up. Guys who should be playing professional ball today ended up getting locked in prison for drugs. And I didn't want to do that, Martin. I love my freedom. I love to fish, love to hunt, love to ride motorcycles. You can't do that in jail. So I had to straighten myself up. Sergeant John Price of the Homo Police Department actually came to pick me up one time because I was giving Mama a lot of trouble. And I ran from him. And I laughed at him. I said, you can't catch me. He says, I'll never run to catch you, Herbert. So one morning, I'm in the bed sleeping at 2 o'clock in the morning. He can't pick me up. And he took me to the
wasn't
city.
running either,
No,
was he?
sir. He took me to the city police station. He says, you're going to sleep in here tonight. He says, you're going to learn what it's about.
Yeah.
And when I came out, I was locked. Actually, he locked me in with a high school buddy of mine. And when I came out, I said, Sarge, you'll never see me in this place again. Never.
Yeah.
And I never went back, and I had to straighten up.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.